Hey guys, and welcome to The Broken Sword. As most of you know, we are slowly trying to get through all of our old videos, update them, and get them back up on the channel for you. One that we have had significant requests for is this one, the Battle of Dale. And as much as this one was one of my favourites, I felt like it was very outdated, so instead of just updating the old one, I decided to completely redo it. I love all battles involving the dwarves, but this one especially is an epic one, and not to mention vital within the War of the Ring. Right, enough rambling, let's get into it.
Build me an army worthy of Mordor.
So many of you will have heard lots of talk about the wars in the North, whether that be through the non-canon video game, War in the North, reading about it in the appendices of The Lord of the Rings, or maybe you've just heard us go on about it a lot through our videos. The Northern Wars were essentially the parts of the War of the Ring that we don't get to see in the main storyline of The Lord of the Rings. However, this does not make them any less important. Many battles were fought during the War in the North, however the most decisive and important battle was the Battle of Dale. It was fought between the Easterlings of Rhûn and the allied armies of the Kingdom of Dale and the Dwarves of Erebor and the Iron Hills. So how did this battle come to be? Well, Sauron sent messengers to Erebor to try to negotiate with King Dain. They wanted his help in the search for the One Ring, although this was not made clear, he was just told it was a magical ring. Sauron promised Dain that if he gave him any information he has on the hobbits and helped him track down the ring, then he would reward them by giving them 3 of the Dwarven Rings of Power, and said that Moria would be theirs again. The messengers went on to warn Dain that if he refused the alliance, things would not go well. Dain refused to be bribed and threatened by Sauron, so he told his messenger that he would need time to think over the proposal. Although his mind was already made up, he decided to send Gloin to Rivendell to consult with Elrond and begin to prepare his army for war. Sauron, of course, did not take kindly to Dain refusing his offer and sent an army of Easterlings towards the Kingdom of Dale. Dale essentially sat at the foot of the Lonely Mountain, and its king Brand had a good relationship with Dain and the dwarves, so their battle alliance was inevitable. So Sauron did not just attack Dale because he was upset at Dain for refusing the offer, it had a more strategic motive than that. The Dark Lord knew that if he attacked Dale with a large army, then he could prevent any possibilities of his enemies rallying together and making a larger stand at arguably a more important battle, such as the battle at Minas Tirith. But we will talk more about the importance of this battle's outcome later. Let's get into some details. So as I said, whilst he was attacking Gondor with his southern forces, Sauron sent a large army of Easterlings to assault Dale to prevent his armies from joining forces. They crossed the River Carnan around the same time that Minas Tirith was sieged. The combined forces of Dale, led by King Brand, and the dwarves of Erebor and the Iron Hills, led by King Dain Ironfoot, met the Easterlings in battle on the 17th of March 3019. Sauron's forces were likely outnumbering their foes by a large margin. Now the actual sizes of the armies is a little unclear. Now I've seen a few estimations online which definitely aren't right. Those approximate around 50,000 men of Dale, 100,000 dwarves and 200,000 Easterlings. Now I'd be pretty confident that you could at least take a 0 off each of those, and it'd be far more likely to be around 20,000 Easterlings, 10,000 dwarves and 5,000 men of Dale. And again, that would still seem pretty extreme. But of course the numbers aren't important, all we must know here is that the dwarves and the men of Dale were heavily outnumbered. However, despite being largely outnumbered, they were likely better equipped thanks to the armories in the Lonely Mountain. The fighting was gruesome and went back and forth for 3 days. However, the Easterlings eventually began to overwhelm their enemies and forced them to retreat back into Erebor. It was here that the dwarves made their final stand. Sadly, King Brand, grandson of Bard the Bowman, fell before the gates. King Dain Ironfoot stood over the body of his friend and defended it. He slaughtered many Easterlings, but was eventually killed himself. Casualties were severe, so the remaining men and dwarves were forced to retreat inside the mountain. But despite winning the battle, the Easterlings were unable to get past its mighty gates. It was not until news of Sauron's defeat in the south reached them that the tides changed. Seeing the morale of their foes drop, the armies of Dale and Erebor, now led by new kings, Bard II and Thorin III Stonehelm, managed to lift the siege and drive the Easterlings out of the Valley of Dale for good. So apart from losing a few key players such as Dain and Brand, the Battle of Dale was hugely important for a few other reasons. Now, although the outcome of this battle would likely not change the result of the War of the Ring, as its fate was tied to the fate of the One Ring itself. However, a victory of Sauron and Dale would have had catastrophic consequences for Middle-earth. Now, this is just speculation, but it's likely that if the Easterlings were victorious, they would have joined the forces in Dol Guldur in the attacks on the woodland realm of Mirkwood, perhaps tipping the scales in their favour. If Mirkwood fell, then the chances of Rohan, Gondor, and even Rivendell falling are suddenly far more likely. We actually get a quote from Gandalf in the appendix that relates to the consequences of losing that battle. "Think of what might have been. Dragonfire and savage swords in Erebor, night in Rivendell. There might be no queen in Gondor. We might now hope to return from the victory here only to ruin and ash." One of the biggest changes to Middle-earth as a result of this battle was the massive loss of dwarven life. The battle further reduced the already low numbers of dwarves, which helped pave the way for the dominion of men in the Fourth Age. Very, very sad indeed. It's funny, before starting these channels, dwarves were probably my least favourite race in Middle-earth. I just did not really feel like I could relate to them at all. However, after making all these videos on them, they have quickly become my favourite race. And a few of the dwarves are now amongst my favourite characters that Tolkien ever created. So my question for you guys today is this. If Dain had taken the offer from Sauron and allied with him, how would this have changed the outcome of the war? We of course know that Sauron would likely have an additional few thousand Easterlings to attack Gondor and Mirkwood, which are big numbers. Let us know your thoughts on that in the comments down below. Before we go guys, I would again just like to take a second to thank each and every one of you that have continued to support us through the transition from History of the Ages to the Broken Sword. We have really tried to up the quality of our content, and we hope it notices. Also, all of you that have continued to show support to our short film through Patreon are incredible. Thank you so much, it means the world to us. Speaking of Patreon, time has come to thank all our patrons. A special shout out goes to the members of our highest tiers, Lorenzo, The Sheath, Denver Steele, Gregory and Andrew, and finally a shout out to our limited special tier on Patreon, Kevin, Abram, Michael, Matt and Glorfindel of Gondolin. As members of this tier, you guys of course all get an executive producer role on our film and will be able to give feedback on the story itself during pre-production. I believe you've all had and maybe read the scripts. So far feedback has been good, so we're very, very happy. In case you aren't aware, 100% of support on Patreon goes directly to the budget of our film, not in our pockets. So if you want to support the project, that is how you can do so. A very quick reminder to check out our other channels, The Sixth Ranger and History of Dragon Ball, for some nostalgic Power Rangers and anime lore. The links will be in the description if they are of any interest to you. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more Middle-earth content. Thank you so much for watching, I hope you have a great day, and I will see you next time on The Broken Sword.